The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Oh, I've answered that question, and if you look at what I said, you will see that that question was answered perfectly. And I was talking about people that went because they felt very strongly about the monument to Robert E. Lee, a great general, whether you like it or not. He was one of the great generals. I've spoken to many generals here, right at the White House, and many people thought of the generals. They think that he was maybe their favorite general. People were there protesting the taking down of the monument of Robert E. Lee. Everybody knows that.
He's a jackass.
He is. He's actually a clear and present danger. This was a very emotional weekend, I have to say. So welcome back to it, everybody. Time to shine our little lights. Time to shine our little lights, because a little light can move a lot of darkness. And that is our job now. Our job now is to remove the freaking darkness from this here country, which is ate up with hatred. There is so much hate in this country, and it's all over the place. And it's, I mean, I was reading today, you know, everything that we had lived through over the weekend with this another shooter, another white supremacist. This one is a nursing student. He was a 19-year-old nursing student. I mean, he's like Annie Wilkes in Misery, that kind of nurse. Remember her? She was a psycho. This was unbelievable. So you had a 19-year-old somehow get himself an AK and go into the Chabad on the last day of Passover, which is the day that we memorialize and light candles for and pray for our dead. That is what the last day of Passover is about. It's the day that we light those Yuxite candles. And my house looks like a freaking forest fire with all the candles I have to light now and all the prayers we have to say. And this man decides that on that day, he's going to go into a tiny little town, 50,000 people, Poway, California. And he's going to, and thank God he was the moron that couldn't shoot straight. Because what happened was his freaking gun jammed. And he ran away. Otherwise, we would have had something in the order of what we had in Sri Lanka, or something in the order of that we had at the Tree of Life. I mean, this is just disgusting. I don't know what to say about it anymore, except to tell you that we have to shine our lights. The only thing that can beat back this kind of hatred is love, understanding, good deeds, kind works, smiling at each other. Seriously, it's those small little things that change a culture. And our culture needs changing. We have a president who stood on a stage this weekend. And, you know, this is kind of creepy. Karen and Steve, you know, they're my best friends. Karen and Steve came over because we were at their house for Passover. You know, we posted that video. If you're wondering where, that was Karen and Steve's house. And so we were at Passover last weekend at their house. So this weekend I kind of said, just come over, you know, we'll have hamburgers and hang out and watch movies. And they came over, and it was Saturday night, and Trump was in Wisconsin. And I have to tell you, no one wanted to watch this. I didn't want to watch it. Karen didn't want to watch it. Steve didn't want to. You know who wanted it? Howard wanted to watch it. Howard was like, I waited all day for this. This is getting creepy, okay? This is getting like, you can see the effect that this man has on otherwise normal people. No, I want to watch. I waited all day. I want to hear. And this is what I was saying on the After Hours podcast. I wake up every morning to, he tweeted. He's tweeting like crazy. Some people are just fascinated by, I guess it's the audacity. I guess it's by, the stupidity, the audacity, the spirit in which Trump seems to be unafraid to say racist things, unafraid to call people baby killers and demand that doctors be sentenced to the death penalty if they somehow are present for the birth of a baby that's born without working lungs or a working brain. I mean, doctors tell the parents the situation, and the parents cry. There are bereavement teams in hospitals that help parents get through this stuff. And the president decided to stand on a stage in Wisconsin. This was my Saturday night, listening to him say that, that Democrats are baby killers. I swear to God, that's how low this went.
The baby is born. The mother meets with the doctor. They take care of the baby. They wrap the baby beautifully. And then the doctor and the mother determine whether or not they will execute the baby. I don't think so. Incredible. No, it's incredible. Until this crazy man in Virginia said it, nobody even thought of that, right? Did anyone even think of that? You hear late term. But this is where the baby is actually born. It came out. It's there. It's wrapped. And that's it. Who believes it?
Who believes it? Who believes it? Hopefully no one, but that whole audience believed it. And people watching that believe it. And old people sitting in their lazy boys believe it. This is really sick. Now, there was a nurse. She tweets, threads of importance, things that people must know about difficult scenarios and difficult situations and difficult, jobs that nurses actually have in our hospital. This woman was, she's a neonatal intensive care unit nurse, and she serves on one of the bereavement teams that we have in our hospitals in neonatal units. And she heard this too. And I have to tell you, it simply takes your breath away, because there are people out there that could be thrown into violent mode if they think that what he just said there is remotely true. And of course, it isn't. It isn't. She said, "We are a special team of nurses, tough enough to help new parents go through the worst day of their lives. Parents of babies who had fought so hard for their tiny little lives and aren't going to make it. And parents of babies who, after they were born and wouldn't have their mom's body keeping them alive, would die rather quickly. As these small bodies were failing, it was our job to be there with the parents. At every step, give them support, do our best to make some memories of their precious babies that could help ease their impending and overwhelming grief. When heroic measures fail, or a baby without a brain, or a working lung, or a working heart is born, we know the end is near, and we encourage the parents to be present in these final moments. We place the babies skin to skin with mom, and we place blankets over them. We lower the lights and quiet the room. We have as much or as little family and that the parents want in the room. We sing songs, we pray, we hug, we sway, we all cry." I cried until my throat burned for this family who had just had to endure the unthinkable, who were in the moment. We were in the moment with those families. We took pictures, even for the ones who were too traumatized to think that they would ever want to see them, just in case they did. We made footprints. We put a lock of hair into a ribbon. We measured the baby's length and marked it on tape measure. We made special tiny white gowns and hats for our angels. We created a memory box for these families who were losing their child that day. So yes, there are those in hospitals who are around these infants who pass. They are the bereavement teams, and they provide the equivalent of neonatal hospice to families who are living through absolute hell. Babies and children die. It's a sad part of life. But no one, absolutely no one, ever in any hospital, nor any mother who has just given birth, is conspiring with a doctor on whether they want to commit infanticide. This is perhaps one of the sickest accusations levied by this deranged dictator yet. Don't believe a word he says about anything important. Let me tell you something. I'm sitting there, I'm arguing, turn this off, I don't want to hear. And then he says crap like this, and you know you have to say something. People know they have to do something. People understand that this kind of propaganda is spurring people into violent mode. It was so sick because this is what we were talking about on Friday. And people were telling me, why do you have to go there? And then it happened.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Bullets had shredded the rabbi's hands. Noya's father tried to help him.
He doesn't want to go to the hospital. He started praying, and he started praying for everybody. And he wants to keep the community strong and tight.
So the rabbi was refusing to leave the synagogue?
Yeah, and he started praying. Even that he's been shot, and even that he's been bleeding. And I told him, Rabbi, please, your life is threatening right now. You're bleeding so much, you can die. No, I will stay here. I build it, I'm going to die here.
Rabbi Goldstein survived, but his index finger had to be amputated. The rabbi was one of the main reasons the Dehans had moved to Poway. The family left Sderot, Israel, because a rocket hit their home. They wanted a safer place to raise their 5 children. They moved to Mira Mesa, California, but hate found them there too. Swastikas were painted on the family's garage and car.
Did you leave there out of fear for your family?
Yes, of course. We were sleeping inside the locked bedroom with knives and with baseball pool because that's the only way I can protect my family. And then I met Rabbi Goldstein, and he told me, come to our community.
They loved it and moved to Poway.
The synagogue's always a safe place to be. We're not supposed to be worried about anything.
3 years later, terror would find them once again.
I'm feeling scared, unsafe. I just feel like I want to be with my family and in a safe place where the whole family is there, and if someone gets hurt, there's like someone always behind us and like watching out for us.
How do you make them feel safe?
They don't. I cannot.
You've basically had to run from one place to the next because of anti-Semitism.
Yes. This is the right word to use, yes. And I might need to run again. It will. I don't think it will stop soon. I might need to run again, and I need to prepare myself for the next run.
It's a horrible way to live.
It is horrible, yeah, but that's where we live.
That's where we live, and it's happened. That's America, everybody. That's America. These are people who flee places because they're not safe, because rockets land in their driveways or on their houses, and then they come here, and then swastikas are painted on their car or on their garage door, and then they have to go someplace else where they know that there's a community of like-minded people, and then even there, a 19-year-old with an AK-47 and a manifesto on the internet. And the FBI knew about this because this kid was posting on 8chan. I saw his posting. And he told him, thanks for everything I learned here in this chat room, right, on 8chan. He said, thanks for everything. I learned so much here. Stay tuned for a live stream. And he left, and he went into the Chabad of Poway, and he started shooting, and his damn gun wouldn't function. And so he got off a couple of shots, and he killed a woman who threw herself in front of the rabbi to protect him. And the rabbi got his finger blown off, and he's screaming about it because he sees all the kids. He's trying to get all the kids out. And the kids have to see all of this. They have to see a woman be shot. They have to see the rabbi's finger blown off. They have to see him bleeding and screaming, get out, get out, get out, and all this. And this president, my reaction to white supremacy is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And Kellyanne Conway was on the TV this weekend, and they were asking her, when is the president going to show any damn leadership about all this hatred that he actually gives permission to? He actually, it's like, oh, well, they love Robert E. Lee. As if Robert E. Lee somehow stood for Jews will not replace us or some such thing. I mean, that's what was going on in Charlottesville. In Charlottesville, Nazis, literal Nazis, were in the streets screaming, Jews will not replace us. And the president decided to tell you that was because of Robert E. Lee's statue. What? How do you even get there in a normal mind Well, the answer is you don't. And she's sitting on the TV. She's playing whataboutism. Well, what about this one? And what about that one? And what about this? And what about that? And I don't see this. And I don't see. It's the sickest answer.
You brought up Charlottesville.
No, I'm bringing up white supremacy and how this president has condemned it again and again, and people are lying about that.
Let's go back to the original question.
And Joe Biden thinks he should raise that
we
again.
We can talk about that in a second.
He brought it up because he has no vision and he doesn't be held to account for the Obama-Biden legacy.
My question was, does President Trump think white nationalism is a growing threat around the world? Because he said 6 weeks ago, I don't really. And it's a small group of people that have very, very serious problems. There are people in law enforcement and elsewhere who think, actually, white nationalism, white supremacy is a growing threat. And now we've had the second fatal synagogue shooting in 6 months. I'm not saying it's President Trump's fault.
And that's one of them. I think there's anti-Christianity. That's why the Sri Lankans were gunned down. They're not Eastern worshippers, Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Of course.
They are Christians.
But Islamist terrorism, nobody disputes that that's a serious threat.
Well, she wouldn't call it radical Islamist terrorism. Hillary, when she at her convention, she wouldn't call it radical Islamist terrorism.
Trump. President Trump said he didn't
that's why he's the president.
He didn't think white nationalism was a growing threat around the world. And I'm asking.
He does think it's a threat, and there's no question it's a threat.
He does think it's a threat.
Yes, of course he thinks it's a threat. That's
well, he said he didn't.
He said he didn't. He said it was a few unhinged, unhealthy people, and that there is no increase in hatred in this country. There is no increase in, attacks on churches or any place of worship. There isn't white supremacy. Now, Dylan Roof was white supremacist. He went into a black church. That was a Christian church. The synagogue shootings, this is the second one in 6 months, okay? That is white supremacy also. The same damn thing with the mosques in Sri Lanka, okay? That is just pure hatred. We see the increase in white supremacy. We see the increase in attacks on places of worship. And she said, well, what about Hillary? And what about this? And what about that? And that one won't call it this. The president says it's not a problem. And you know something? Anti-Semitic attitudes in this country were at a historic low. We were there. And now the FBI says that anti-Semitic activity is up almost 40% in this country, 37% in 2017. That is a sharper rise than any other group. And I'll tell you something. Maybe it just starts with Jews, but that's why we run that commercial. I didn't say anything because I wasn't a fill in the blank. I wasn't a Muslim. I wasn't a Sikh. I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't a Jew. I wasn't a Latino. I wasn't an African American. And then they came for me. This president is causing so much violence. He is spreading a disease. He is like a virus. He is engulfing all of the light. He is literally a giant, uber, dark cloud. And he does it because he's actually sounding the clarion call to his supporters. Don't let me leave. Don't let anything happen to me. And in the same breath that he was giving this speech in Wisconsin on Saturday where he condemned acts of, anti-Semitic violence, then he downshifts into how Democrats want to take your guns away. I swear to God. And downshifts into Democrats are baby killers. And downshifts into I hate Latinos. In fact, he admits this was sick. He actually stood on that stage in Wisconsin and told that audience that shipping out migrants who are waiting for their asylum hearings to sanctuary cities, and I'm quoting him, he said, that was my sick idea. He knows what he's doing. He knows these ideas are sick. He knows that it goes viral, and he does it anyway.
Last month alone, 100,000 illegal immigrants arrived at our borders, placing a massive strain on communities and schools and hospitals and public resources like nobody's ever seen before. Now we're sending many of them to sanctuary cities. Thank you very much. They're not too happy about it. I'm proud to tell you that was actually my sick idea, but it's horrible.
He is disgusting. That is, he is a clear and present danger to peace and security, tranquility, the pursuit of happiness, whatever. He won't observe the laws. He won't execute the laws. He defies subpoenas. This man is a blight. He is a clear and present danger to our republic, to our democratic republic. There is no question that he is a demagogue. There is no question he's a hater. There is no question that he doesn't understand the American compact or what our country is about. He stands there and proudly tells you that he's got sick ideas, and people applaud. They cheer for his sick ideas. And he violates the law every single freaking day. He encourages violence. He eggs it on. He tells you he'll pay the legal bills if somebody does something. This man is a danger. He is. And the idea that we can't impeach him, that we don't hold him accountable for all of these things is so bizarre and so wrong. And listen, the Senate is so busy. Congress, welcome back, Congress. Congress is back in session today. And it's Infrastructure Week, which means something is, the second I hear Infrastructure Week, you just know something horrible is going to happen. And it did. And we haven't even started the week. It's just so sick and sad. It's just so, it's so, I don't know how in the world we think we're going to have a free and fair election in 2020 with this guy at the head of it. By the way, there was a story over the weekend that, because you had a shooting just 6 months after the Tree of Life, just a few weeks, 6 weeks after the Christchurch mosque killings. Sri Lanka, you had 250 people killed. Then you had Christchurch 6 weeks ago. All these, a couple of mosques were blown up. Then 6 months ago, the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, right? You lost 11 people there. And then Saturday, this little tiny town, Poway, California. And today, you had this Army vet who was going to bomb a Nazi rally in California. You had this ex-Army dude. Apparently, he converted to Islam, and he wanted to get revenge for the New Zealand the New Zealand mosque attacks. His name's Mark Domingo, 26 years old. An infantryman, served in Afghanistan. He was arrested by federal agents. He was finalizing plans to plant a bomb at a Nazi rally that has been planned for Long Beach. Why are the Nazis planning rallies in Long Beach? And how is it possible that this kind of stuff is like minor news now? How is that? He said he was going to target Jews, churches, and police officers and white nationalists. Well, the white nationalists never showed up. Counter-protesters to protest the Nazis did. So they would have been the ones that were killed. This is just, it's just escalating. It's escalating and escalating and escalating. And he stands on the stage on Saturday and he starts talking about fake news and he called law enforcement scum. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from this guy. It's the president of the United States of America. I mean, he called law enforcement scum.
And if you look at what's happened with the scum.
Oh, my God.
That's leaving the very top of government. People that others used to say, oh, they're dirty. These were dirty cops. These were dirty players. You take a look at what's going on. There's 21 of them already. And I'm not even they're just leaving because they got caught like nobody ever got caught.
What the hell is he talking about? Just standing on a stage, rambling, stream of consciousness with Adderall straight to the vein brain about law enforcement being scum. And I got to tell you, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin was asked, what about the president calling the FBI scum? And he wouldn't. He defended the president.
I want to ask you first about the speech last night. The president referred to FBI officials as scum. Is that the right way for the president of the United States to speak about law enforcement officers of the U.S. government?
Well, first of all, I completely understand the president's frustration.
Oh, my God.
He knew from day one that he was innocent, and he was subjected to this 2-year investigation,
oh my
a
God.
very thorough investigation. And in that process, certainly Andrew McCabe was fired because he lied to his own investigators. Now, this is the former deputy director and acting FBI director lying to his own investigators. So, no, I understand the president's frustration. From my standpoint, there has been a concerted effort since the day after the election to sabotage this administration. So I completely understand his frustration.
Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton, who has been investigated for, she was under investigation for Benghazi for, 3 years. Can you imagine her standing on a stage and calling law enforcement scum and having a Republican senator defend that? Say, well, she's very frustrated. Well, and first of all, Donald Trump is not innocent. That is a fact. Robert Mueller said that people lied so much and destroyed so much evidence, and the president said, I don't recall 37 times in his written answers, would not sit for an interview. Junior, we believe now, took his Fifth Amendment privilege and wouldn't testify, said that if he testified, it would incriminate him in front of the grand jury. That's what we think is redacted from that report. And they're saying he's innocent. They're saying it's okay to call him scum and he's innocent. Let me tell you something. Sally Yates was on after Ron Johnson, and she was asked the same question about, can you believe that he's calling people like you scum?
Well, first of all, I want to ask you about the president in Wisconsin last night, referring to former FBI officials who began in this investigation as scum.
Scum.
Yeah, he's referred to them as scum. He's accused people of spying. And, I think those are words that we really shouldn't be throwing around about the men and women in law enforcement and in our intelligence community.
The Mueller report cites 140 contacts, according to a tally in the New York Times, at least 140 contacts, including 13 from the president himself with Russia during the campaign and afterwards in the transition. Does this mean the president is completely exonerated, even though, because of a lot of other issues, not being able to interview the president, not being able to talk to a lot of the other witnesses, emails that were eliminated, there was no grounds for a prosecution?
Well, if you read the entire Mueller report, I think it paints a really devastating portrait of a president in a campaign who welcomed a foreign adversary's illegal interference in our election, who then continually lied about it and then used the power of the presidency to try to thwart an investigation into his own conduct. That's not exoneration.
Exactly. And you have these senators sitting on the TV saying he's completely innocent. That is not what's in this report. What's in this report are an enormous amount of crimes, but there was no cooperation and there was destruction of evidence and lying.
Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
And this also happened over the weekend in poetry and prose, a real hotbed for white supremacy, right? In Washington, D.C., a little bookstore there in Washington, D.C. White supremacists showed up at the little bookstore in Washington, D.C.
Healthcare, good jobs, and so forth. This land is our land. 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 Hey, excuse me. Fuck you guys. Hey.
Can you believe this? And that was like not even reported. Okay, there was. I mean, this, and then you had a woman who moved here from Venezuela in 2015. She left a small town where she said the Jews had to be hiding all the time, and she moved to Cary, North Carolina, and she thought she'd be okay there. But then her house started getting flooded with anti-Semitic flyers. They had swastikas all over them, circulating in her neighborhood, and it turns out the son of a judge was spreading all this white supremacy all over the town. She said it's like there's no place in the world where you can be really comfortable with the idea of being a Jew. I mean, And then, okay, it's always, in this order, okay? It's Jews, then homosexuals, okay? And you're next because you had this very strange Republican operative on the TV this week on the Sunday shows. I never saw this one before, but she started attacking Pete Buttigieg because he's gay in this very... it was such a bizarre thing that even the anchors were sitting there going, "You're in an alternative universe. Seriously, what is wrong with you? Why are you?" She's like, "He shared a kiss on stage with his spouse because he's making his gayness the issue." And the anchors pointed out that many candidates share kisses with their spouses as they're running for office. So how is that making heterosexuality the issue when, listen, I will say, Al Gore and Tipper made heterosexuality the issue because he just threw his tongue down her throat. He didn't want to let go. Remember that creepy kiss? That was like really entirely too long and uncomfortable to watch. It was like, but it wasn't that he was making his heterosexuality the issue. It was TMI. Okay, it was as if I sat here and I started talking to Brett and Scotty about me and Howard at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday night. It's TMI. But she insists that kissing your spouse is advertising your sexual orientation.
And clearly, Pete Buttigieg has made his gayness an issue in this campaign. He's brought his husband up on stage. They shared a kiss during his announcement.
The guy made this up.
He's made his gayness an issue as much as a straight couple has made their straightness an issue. He barely mentioned that he was a gay person during his speech to declare his candidacy. How is it making it an issue?
I think he made it a huge issue. He talked about his spouse, Chasten, and the fact that they were, married. And let's be real. This is not a typical candidate. We haven't had a gay presidential candidate ever in the history of the United States.
Yeah, we have.
And he made it an issue. He could have ignored it. He could have said nothing. And people would speculate about it, but he made it an issue. So he wants that to be an identifier.
I get it.
And he will get a certain constituency of the Democratic Party simply for that particular demographic characteristic. But I don't think you'll see that many gay Republicans flocking to Pete Buttigieg. In fact, I don't know that, like I said, there's that many to where it would make a difference.
And Shondella, I got to disagree in the sense that all he did was do what many other straight couples have done.
Yeah.
Didn't necessarily make it an issue there. Respectfully disagreeing with you.
Well, they shared a kiss. They shared a kiss on stage.
Okay.
That's unusual.
What? We have had bachelor presidents before. I believe Buchanan was bachelor president, and Lindsey Graham also, never married. Listen, could I just tell everybody, whether you're a Jew, a Muslim, a Christian, and or a gay, if you hide it, hate wins. Don't hide it. If you want to wear a cross, wear a cross. If you want to cover, cover. If you want to go to a synagogue, go to a synagogue. If you want to wear a Star of David or a chai, wear one. Wear a big one. If you hide it, hate is winning. Do not hide who you are. Do not hide anything. These people, I swear to God, they're turning out the lights. They're turning out the lights so the cockroaches feel free to roam and eat your face. This is vile. This is grotesque. To see a woman in this day and age sitting on the TV playing that card again. Oh, well, we've never had a gay president in the history of the United States. I suggest you study the history of the United States. And also your friend Lindsey Graham. Maybe you should study him a little bit. Lindsey Graham, the shamelessness of this man. Oh, my God. I don't know if you saw him on the Sunday shows. He's sitting there and he's saying he's done with the Mueller investigation. He's done with... Even when you play Lindsey Graham, even when you play it for him and you tell him, This was you when it came to Bill Clinton. This is how you felt about impeaching Bill Clinton.
Attorney General Barr will be answering questions for the first time really in detail about the Mueller report. I know you've said you're done with it.
Pretty much.
But what is it that you're going to try to focus in on with this hearing?
Well, he gave a 4-page summary. Does the report support his summary? Does the report actually indicate there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians?
No.
I think the idea that this president obstructed justice is absurd. He turned over 1 million documents to the special counsel. Almost everybody around him testified.
Almost everybody.
I can't think of one thing that President Trump did to stop Mueller from doing his job.
He tried to fire him.
Never claimed executive privilege. From my point of view, I've heard all I need to really know. Now I want to look at and find out how all this happened.
But on that point of attempting to obstruct justice or not, the president seems to want to continue to litigate this because he came out this week and said and denied that he had ever thought or told anyone to fire Don McGahn, the White House counsel. But that directly contradicts sworn testimony that was in the Mueller report where Don McGahn said he almost quit. He was so pressured to fire the
Jeff
special
Sessions,
counsel.
too.
Who do you believe?
Corey
I
Lewandowski,
think it's just all theater. It doesn't matter. I don't care what he said to Don McGahn. It's what he did. The president never obstructed.
It doesn't matter to you that the president is changing a version of events, or perhaps some would say lying.
If you're going to look at every president who pops off at a staff and, ask him to do something that's maybe crazy, then we won't have many presidents.
But he is a shameless, disgusting person, because here he is about talking about Clinton and why Clinton had to be impeached. The underlying crime, by the way, with Bill Clinton was having an affair.
So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic. If this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role, because impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office.
Cleansing.
Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office.
Unbelievable. Isn't that stunning? It takes your breath away, doesn't it? The shamelessness of Lindsey Graham. I mean, and they keep moving the goalposts, okay? At first, remember, Trump said no contacts with Russians, none. Didn't ever do it. Now you have Rudy Giuliani literally sitting on the TV saying, so what? So what? Cedric in Los Angeles.
Oh, hello?
Yep.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I'd like to see us stop playing checkers and start playing chess. I think that when the white supremacists get talked about in the media, we should call them murderers, killers of unarmed people, and we should call them cowards when we refer to them. And if we want to speak of them, we should call them gang members.
They are gang members. Yeah.
Instead of calling them white supremacists, every time
I think white supremacy is about the most disgusting thing you could say about a person. But the idea that they are part of a gang, a hateful killing gang, and that they're killers, that's very true. It's very, 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 very true. They are gang members, obviously. They have gang insignia, gang signals, hand signals, the okay thing with the white power. They do everything the same way gangs do it, except they kill for ideology.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your
Mary had a little man. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
He's already doing tremendous damage. Abetted, by the way, by the Senate Republicans who are amazingly undercutting their own institution and its powers for very short-term gain. But Trump, yes, if Trump wins, he'll do great damage. But if he loses the election, He is going to call upon his supporters for violence. There's not going to be a civil war. That's idiocy. But you will see at least isolated violence on the part of crackpot supporters. He will be clinging to the doors of the White House, giving orders to everybody on all sides that the honest people will not obey, the career employees will not obey, the military certainly won't obey. Anderson, let's check back in a couple of years, but I'm telling you, and it's not funny, it's going to be very, very ugly, whatever happens, but Trump needs to go for the good of this country.
Now, that was Friday. And then Saturday, more violence. And then today, another plot thwarted, and the FBI is saying that this guy was ate up with hatred. He's consumed. That's what they're saying about this bomber. Consumed with hatred. And he also wanted to kill Jews. He also wanted to kill white supremacists. I mean, the idea that people in this country are being encouraged to turn to violence to solve their problems is being emboldened by this president who says things like, the good old days when we used to punch each other out. And, if you do that, I'll get your legal bills. The good old days when you carry him out on a stretcher, right? And Trump is a clear and present danger because if he does get reelected, the Congress will be nothing. There won't be any checks and balances on a second term of Donald Trump because he will already have defanged and defied subpoenas, told other people to lie, told other people to defy the subpoena, told other people not to show up. Right now, Bill Barr is supposed to testify on the 2nd, which is this week. And we're sitting here wondering if he's going to show up. Nobody knows if he's going to show up. He doesn't like the format. He doesn't this. He doesn't that. They want him to stay after the public questioning, and they want him to brief them on what was redacted from the Mueller. And he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to tell them. So, this president will destroy Congress. I mean, the Senate is already gone. This is the thing. Also, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He's destroyed that, too. He won't go. I mean, he decided to do this Wisconsin, off the hook baby killing, Democrats suck and law enforcement are scum. And I don't give a damn about, people who kill people because some people need to be killed. I mean, it's just like the sickest freaking thing you've ever seen in your life. And the reason why he did that in Wisconsin is because he didn't want to go to the Correspondents' Dinner. And the Correspondents' Dinner is like hanging by a thread now. You had, a historian do the dinner, and it lasted about an hour. And that was the end of the dinner. It was so sad. And I'm watching all of the correspondents who were going to go to the Correspondents' Dinner. I've been to that dinner. And they're all in evening wear, unable to go to the dinner because, breaking news, a synagogue was just shot up today. This country is off the hook. Now, the Senate, like I said, Congress is back in session this week, and all they're doing in the Senate is court packing. Mitch McConnell said that he will be the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper in the Senate. He'll kill every single House bill that has any intention of creating progress for working families. He said, I will be the Grim Reaper. I will kill every one of those bills. And Nancy Pelosi over the weekend said, we need to show him that these bills are alive and well with the American people. The middle class in America don't want the Senate to be a legislative graveyard for so many of these important issues. They want action. Well, the president addressed this in Wisconsin. See if you can make sense out of this. Because I literally sat there and I rewound it when he said this, and then we rewound it again. I said, what the hell did he just say? And people cheer this nonsense, okay? This is, first of all, I got to tell you, wages in this country are rising because more women are getting degrees, and states and localities have passed minimum wage laws. Donald Trump is trying to take credit for it, but he doesn't understand it. And so he just says this gibberish on the stage, and people cheer it.
And you know what's nice? Because I have a couple of friends here. They're pretty wealthy people, very successful people.
Oh, my God.
And you know what? The hell with them. I don't care. I care about everybody. Mm-hmm. You know what I love? I love the fact that wages are rising fastest for the lowest income Americans, percentage-wise. I love it. When they say it hasn't trickled down, the most successful, percentage-wise, the most successful are the lowest income Americans. There's something great about that. And people that are now able to go out, we got Veterans Choice. We also have employment choice because you never had a chance. You had to stay in a job that you hated or you couldn't get a job. Now you can go out. You have 7 alternatives. You get a job that you love and you get much higher salaries. It's great.
What the hell is he talking about? Do you have 7 choices in jobs, everybody? 7 choices. The reason why wages are starting to increase at the lower end of our economy is because states and localities have passed minimum wage laws. That's the first thing. And the second thing is more people are going into debt to get degrees. Because if you have a degree, your starting salary is a lot higher than if you don't. So he's just sitting there, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he only makes sense when he's on the freaking teleprompter.
He is very concerned about violence by immigrants. He's very concerned about radical Islamic terrorism, but he's not concerned about white supremacy. And, this is who he is. When he is not on a teleprompter, we see what he really believes. And, if he wants to pretend that those people in Charlottesville were about Robert E. Lee and not chanting, Jews will not replace us, it's our job to point out the reality of what's going on there. People are going to believe what they want to believe, but that crowd was not about Robert E. Lee. That was a racist, anti-Semitic crowd, and that's the crowd he continues to this day to endorse.
And he just spouts gibberish about, economic frustration or issues of importance or the ACA. He stood on the stage and said, I'm still going to destroy the ACA. And people cheer it because he wraps it in this hatred, this permission to hate, this permission to loathe, this permission to attack. People love to be consumed by hate. They love it. It's a very strange presidency, and and now we're finding out how illegitimate it is. There was also a New York Times story over the weekend that the day before the 2016 presidential election, the 120 election supervisors, 120 different Trojan viruses were sent to Florida election emails. And they were actual viruses, Trojan viruses, that if you clicked on it, it would start purging the voter rolls in 120 different places. And somebody, knew about it because it looks like there was a message from the chief operating officer. We vote on VR systems here. And this Trojan email, this fake fraudulent email that was really a virus, it looked like the VR logo was on it with a V and a blue R, and it had, if you clicked on it, a malicious Trojan virus. And it didn't originate with the vendor. It originated from Russian military intelligence. It originated from the GRU. And all that VR, the actual company, did was they sent out an email of their own saying, don't open it, don't click on it. But it appears that some election supervisors did. How do we know that? There's a single sentence in the Mueller report that actually shows that it happened. It says, the FBI believes that this operation enabled the GRU to gain access to the network of at least one Florida county's government. It doesn't say who's, it doesn't say which Florida county. The governor, who is, a Trump supporter, Ron DeSantis, he says they won't tell him. They won't tell him.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
You have a personal relationship, and I believe Vice President Pence does, with the family of Otto Warmbier. I'm wondering, you've talked about this week's about Kim Jong-un being my friend. You called him on Twitter. You said you have a great relationship. Have you in Singapore or here confronted Kim Jong-un about Otto Warmbier's death?
I have.
Asked him to take responsibility. And what did he say to you? And why do you call him your friend?
I have, and I have talked about it. And I really don't think it was in his interest at all. I know the Warmbier family very well. I think they're an incredible family. What happened is horrible. I really believe something very bad happened to him, and I don't think that the top leadership knew about it. And when they had to send him home, by the way, I got the prisoners back, I got the hostages back, and Otto was one of the hostages, but Otto came back in shape that was not even to be talked about. I thought it was horrible. Now, the others came back extremely healthy, but Otto came back in a condition that was just terrible. And I did speak about it, and I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen. Those prisons are rough. They're rough places.
Oh, my God.
And bad things happened. But I really don't believe that he was... I don't believe he knew about it.
Did he tell you that he did not... did Kim Jong-un tell you...
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly. But he knew the case very well. But he knew it later. And, you know, you got a lot of people, a big country, a lot of people. And in those prisons and those camps, you have a lot of people. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you...
But he tells me that he didn't know about it. And I will take him at his word.
He has never, ever, ever, ever not taken a dictator at his word. He said, oh, yeah, he knew about Otto, but he knew about it later. Except that's not true. And we know that's not true because John Bolton was on Fox News Sunday, and there was a piece of paper, an agreement to pay Kim Jong-un $2 million for the return of Otto Warmbier. Now, nobody knows if that money ever got paid, but John Bolton, it happened before I was here. But yeah, it's true. It's true. We offered to pay $2 million to Kim.
Did North Korea demand money for the release of Otto Warmbier?
It appears that they did. This occurred before I came into the administration, but that's my understanding, yes.
Did the U.S. official who was there to get him out of the country, Joseph Yun, did he sign a document pledging the money in order to get him out?
That is what I'm told, yes.
And I guess the bottom line question is, did the U.S. pay any money to North Korea, however it was disguised, after Warmbier was released?
Absolutely not. And I think that's the key point. The president's been very successful in getting 20-plus hostages released from imprisonment around the world and hasn't paid anything for any of them.
So basically, we signed the document fully intending not to honor it.
Well, I don't know the circumstances. I think when people leave government, sometimes their recollection of things that happened inside tend to be a little bit different from what actually happened. But it's very clear to me from my looking into it in the past few days, no money was paid. That is clear.
He looked at it in the past few days, and people who leave government have a different recollection, but he admits that, we signed a document that promised to pay Kim Jong-un $2 million in cash or in some way for the return of Otto Warmbier, which means the president has lied yet again.
We did not pay money for our great Otto. There was no money paid. There was a fake news report that money was paid. I haven't paid money for any hostage, and I've gotten approximately, I think it's 20 or 21 out. We don't pay money for hostages. The Otto case was a very unusual case, but I just want to let you know no money was paid for Otto.
They just agreed to pay it, and then, like Trump is, known to do, not pay what he signed that he would pay. And so this idea that he talked to Kim Jong-un, who only knew about Otto later, and Kim Jong-un didn't know that Otto's is a lie. Everything he says is a lie, including the spreading of hate. Hate is not the way. Hate will get you absolutely nowhere. Nowhere. Mike in Tampa.
Randy, I've been following this right-wing hate for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I like to say is it seems to me like the white boys got jealous of ISIS. It's ridiculous. The ISIS wanted a caliphate. These people want an ethno-state.
Yeah, they want to, ISIS wanted, the Middle East, and the white nationalists want America.
Yeah, they want America. And if you're black, if you're Latino, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, you ain't on the list.
That's right.
You know, so, and another thing is, all this radicalization, it's being done online.
Yes.
And, like, there's a lot of similarities between what happened, between the shooter in California and in New Zealand.
Yeah, and also the one in that guy Breivik in Norway is their king. It's he's the hero to them.
Yeah, also I think the Tree of Life shooter was on those 4chan forums where they all commiserate, basically. And so me as an American, I'll tell you what, I'm way more afraid of the white supremacists out there than immigrants or ISIS right now.
I'm not afraid of anybody, but I despise, the violence.
Maybe, yeah.
The violence.
Maybe I'm just worried.
The violence is absolutely sickening, and it represents nothing about, the people of this country. Most people in this country are just trying to get through it. Most people in this country are working really hard. They love their kids. They want to, see their kids do better than they did, and they just want a government that represents that American dream, that notion that your kids should be able to do better than you did, that your kids ought to be able to get an education and not have $100,000 or $200,000 worth of debt for doing the right thing. That's all America's about. It's about being able to go to a doctor when you're sick because we pay out the nose for just the social compact, and they just keep redistributing it to the very wealthy. But you do have this element of, violent, cuckoos who are being emboldened, not just by the internet and not just by the fact that they have chat rooms and places to gather, but that the president refuses to trash them and instead is using them to be his base in case he loses.
Yeah, this stuff's on the rise, and usually it goes down when they.
But that's what he's saying when Donald Trump stands there and says, but the tough people are on my side, like the bikers and the white supremacists and they're the military, they're all on my side. That is Donald Trump rallying the haters, rallying the armed, rallying the cowards and the dangerous to his side, so that if he gives the order. It's just like Colonel Peter says, if he loses, he's just going to say, the military won't follow my orders, so you have to take up arms. That's the ugliness that is coming because Trump is going to lose.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
In fact, his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said on this program just last week that there's no problem with the president, with the candidate, with the Trump campaign, welcoming support from a foreign adversary such as Russia.
Yeah, that's a shocking statement. And it also just reflects how they have moved the goalpost when the truth comes out. Recall at the beginning, they constantly said we didn't have anything to do with any Russians. And then when the truth comes out and reveals that that's a lie, now we have devolved down to there's nothing wrong with taking help, illegal help from a foreign adversary. Surely that's not where we've come to.
A lot of people think that Robert Mueller whiffed, that he should have pushed the envelope, he should have subpoenaed the president when he did not get a voluntary interview, and forced the president to take the fifth if he wants to.
Well, look, it's easy to sit in our armchairs and say what we would have done in those circumstances. I think what you see is that Robert Mueller did the job he was asked to do, and he called it right down the middle.
Some legal experts looking at the Mueller report look at the lines about Donald Trump Jr. saying that they wanted to interview him, were not able to, and then the next portion is redacted according to grand jury testimony with that code. Does that indicate to you, as it has to some legal experts, that Don Jr. may have gone in front of a grand jury and taken the fifth?
Certainly people have speculated as to that, and there's some indication of that, but I don't know for certain. But beyond that, it is absolutely remarkable to me that the President of the United States refused to sit down and answer questions about his or his campaign's involvement with the Russians in the 2016 election or obstruction.
Yeah, because he's a coward. That's why. The president, his son, they're all a bunch of cowards. They get other people to do their dirty work, and as soon as it gets close to them, they just shut down, and they avoid, and they disregard. And now you have a president who truly is defying subpoenas. You have a president who is ordering people not to testify. You have a president who is telling Don McGahn not to testify. You have a president who's telling Bill Barr not to testify. You have a president who is telling the IRS commissioner not to testify. You have a president who's telling the trade commission, Wilbur Ross, not to testify about the effect of, his ridiculous trade wars on farmers and on, people who work in exports in this country. This is the most destructive president I've ever seen in my life, and he just stands on the stage, and when blue states, pass minimum wage laws, he stands there and takes credit for the lower end of the wage scale going up in blue states. The red states are still the poorest states because they won't do minimum wage increases, and yet the president stands there and takes credit for what the blue states do. It's a very sick, position we're in. And the thing that bothers me the most is this election isn't going to be free and fair. This election is going to be rigged. This election, you talk about the hate and the internet, and the effect that this internet gathering and propaganda and the Fox News of the world have on ordinary thinking, otherwise intelligent, decent people, the effect that the propaganda has. Let me tell you something. This is going to happen. 2020, Brad Parscale was on also the Sunday show. I don't know how many people watch these shows, but these shows are real informative because they get people on the record. And Brad Parscale was asked about, first of all, I'm not going to play you the whole thing, but you need to watch the whole thing because he's an idiot. Wow. And he is Trump's campaign manager because Trump is on the D list, the E list, the F list, the G list, the H list. Nobody will work for him. So now he's got this guy who used to go around, Borders bookstores, tapping people on the shoulder to ask them if they wanted to build a website for $1,500. And now he's the campaign manager for Trump 2020. Because this guy is willing to do the dastardly deed. And he literally laid out the target list for 2020. Moron boy did.
Where are you most focused? What
well, there's some key states. Obviously, we have to go back and win Michigan again, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. We plan on also being in Minnesota very soon. I think New Mexico is in play in 2020.
Oh, boy.
I think New Hampshire. I think we continue to grow the map. I think Nevada, even Colorado. And so those are states we did not win in 2016 that I think are open for 2020.
You're an idiot. You did win Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. You did because the Russians helped you there. And what he's saying, he's really dumb as a rock. But what he's saying is we're going to add to the target lists, the Russian target lists. OK, if it's now OK, as Rudy Giuliani says it is, to take help from the Russians, and the help from the Russians help them by 22,000 votes win Michigan or 10,000 votes in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. Now they're saying the same thing's going to happen in New Mexico, New Hampshire, Nevada, Colorado. Minnesota was, right on the cuspy there. This next election is going to be unbelievably unfair, and the odds that we're up against with these social media networks that are making literally billions of dollars by allowing all of this hatred and all of this, attacking and hacking and sucking up people's psychological profiles with these crazy quizzes and no accountability so far for Cambridge Analytica, even though we know Chris Wiley, remember the kid with the pink hair, kept telling whoever would listen. This guy did everything he knew how to do to get on the television and tell everybody how the Russians were infiltrated into the Mercer's Cambridge Analytica, and that was the place where these apps were developed, and they sucked up all this psychological data from voters and could target them. And then we find out at the end that the targeting in the Mueller report, the polling data Okay? The polling data that Manafort gave to Konstantin Kilimnik repeatedly was polling data for Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. So now we're going to see the same thing happen in New Mexico, New Hampshire, Nevada, Colorado. We know Florida was hacked because there was even Marco Rubio was like, because he's the senator from Florida, he's like freaked out. He said, yes, the GRU was in a position to purge the voter rolls so that when you showed up on election day, and they did it the night before election day, so that when you showed up on election day, your name wouldn't show up and you wouldn't be able to vote, or maybe you voted on a provisional ballot and they never counted your vote. I mean, this is not going to be easy. And everybody's like, what do I care about all this? And well, you will care when you show up to vote. You're going to care. You're going to say, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? We all showed up. We all voted. Oh, my God, look at the exit polls. Look at the exit polls. Yeah, well, it got sucked into the vortex of the GRU's little vacuum cleaner. And Congress can't do a damn thing. I mean, you have the House passing all these clean election bills, and the Senate just sits there and acts like a legislative graveyard. Mitch McConnell has pronounced himself literally, quote, the Grim Reaper. Look it up. Google Mitch McConnell Grim Reaper. He said it. He meant it. These people are traitors. They are literally treasonous, treacherous people. Traitors to this nation. The Senate will not lift a finger. And it's like other Republicans have said, for what? For a tax cut? For short-term gain, you would sell out this country? Apparently, yes.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, so over the weekend, the Democrats got together at the SEIU conference. That is, of course, the Service Workers Union. Almost everybody showed up. Bernie did not, and Biden skipped it as well. Elizabeth Warren, of course, was there.
And that is that we've got a government right now that works great, works fabulously, works terrifically for those at the top. It's just not working for anybody else. You know, it works great for giant drug companies, just not for people trying to get a prescription filled. Works great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for people who are worried about climate change bearing down upon us. So the question is, what are we going to do about that? I got a plan. And here's the deal. It's got a lot of parts to it because there's a lot that's broken here. But there's a part I want to focus specifically on right now. And that is we got to rewrite a couple of structural rules in our economy. Not just a statute over here or regulation over there, but real structural rules. Here's the first one. Giant corporations today in America, they pretty much roll however they want to roll. They roll over their employees, they roll over their customers, they roll over the communities where they are, and that's not going to change until there's some way to balance out that power. The way to balance out that power is we need more power in the hands of employees, and that means make it easier to join a union and to give unions more power. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class.
That is true. If you look at the best period of wage earning, if you look at people who used to be able to have one job, a low-wage job, but it was enough to support an entire family. Like her mother, she tells that story all the time about how her dad got sick. Her dad had a heart attack and came home and they thought he was going to die and he couldn't work. And her mom had to take out the dress, the one good dress she had, and she had to put it on, and she got a entry-level job, I believe, at Sears. And that one minimum wage job was enough to pay the mortgage on Elizabeth Warren's family's house, to put food on the table for the children, and allow those kids to eat, get educated, and not lose their house. And you don't have that anymore. Now you have people working 2 and 3 jobs, and still they live in poverty, and that is the shame of the American Republican Party. That is what they wrought down on us. The union busting that they that they engaged in. So you look at the top income earning years in this country, it all ended in 1979, and wages just haven't grown. They union busted enough. They said, that people should not be in unions. This Janus decision, which was the last decision that Kennedy was there on the Supreme Court for, said that you can't force somebody to join a union if they work in a union shop, even if they enjoy all the benefits of collective bargaining, even if they enjoy all the benefits of a health care plan that was negotiated for by a union. They don't have to join. They don't have to thank the union. They don't have to pay the union. They don't have to do anything with the... And this is the crime against American workers that the Republicans were all about for all those years. And it's really sick and it's really scary. And so here you have Democrats who are organized around the idea that, people need to be able to collectively bargain for a wage, or the states or the federal government has got to raise the wage for them so that Americans can pay their bills. Now, the Republicans don't want to raise a federal minimum wage. They'll actually talk people who make minimum wage out of their own raises. That's propaganda. In my life, I've never seen anything that successful, but they can actually talk people into voting against their own best interests. That's number one. So number two, they bust unions all over the place. And so this particular SEIU conference, which was in Nevada, pledged to raise the federal minimum wage to $15. If you saw the backdrop, that's what the backdrop said. It said, fight for 15, and to roll back the tax cut that Donald Trump used to redistribute the wealth from the middle class to the very wealthy. Kamala Harris was there. She flatly stated corporations are going to have to pay more taxes. Julian Castro, he's a former housing secretary and San Antonio mayor. He said housing should be a human right. John Hickenlooper, the former governor of Colorado, he said that he wants to increase the minimum wage beyond $15 an hour in some expensive parts of the country, some parts of the country where the cost of living is through the roof. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's, she's a moderate. She actually, said that the pharmaceutical industry's stocks went up when Trump announced his plans on drug prices. She said that is not going to happen when I come there, because what I'm going to do is bring your prices down. There was no firm plan there. But that's what she was talking about. And of course, Warren, she is very policy heavy, and she's laying out her plan. And one of the aspects of her plan is that if you work for a corporation, a giant corporation, not only do you get to unionize on behalf of the workers, the lowest paid on the floor workers, but you also can run for a seat on their corporate board, so that workers can be represented in the boardroom. I mean, I love that idea. She said that she was talking about one of the less flashy proposals, one of the more, intellectually based proposals. And she said it would let workers elect 40% of the members of large corporate boards. Let's be blunt. People who have power don't give it up easily, she said. And when she finished, she got a standing ovation, because there is a way to do this. There is a way to get wages up. There is a way to bring the difference between a CEO salary and a worker salary back to, 144 times instead of thousands of times. There is a way. Jeff in North Carolina.
Hey, since you were talking about Donald Trump's unacceptable violent rhetoric, do you say that most liberals would agree that violent rhetoric is always unacceptable, even in jest?
Even in jest. Well, it depends. Like, what do you mean?
Well, the time Joe Biden said that he'd like to take Trump out back and beat him up at this high school.
So that's Biden and Trump duking it out. It's not Biden inciting a crowd, is it? the way Trump does.
Well, I'm not saying he's on a par with Trump.
So then why are we bringing it up? Listen, Biden's going to have a lot of things to answer for. There's no question. Biden's got a lot of things he's going to have to answer for. The very first issue is going to be, if you ask me, and I don't know why nobody's asked him this, but I want to know, what did you do as vice president when the Russians were doing this? What did the administration do? That's a big question. Another big question is, why didn't you let Anita Hill call the 3 witnesses who could have testified on her behalf? Another question is going to be, why did you only call her after you began running for president? But the idea that he's like, I want to take him out back, that's guys whipping it out and, threatening each other. Okay. That's not exactly inciting violence.
I'm not saying it's on par with that. I asked if in jest is acceptable, even a minor form.
And before I even knew what you were going to ask me about, I said it depends. Depends on the context, right?
Well, to me, that's like
context is everything.
But it's like violence is cool, is the message he's sending to high schoolers.
Violence isn't cool. Nobody thinks violence is cool, but defending yourself.
Violent people think it's cool.
Defending yourself from a bully requires you stand up to him. That's just a fact.
Well, I will say you're right that Trump deserves a punch in the face like bullies all do. But I still don't think the president or the wannabe president is supposed to be saying, yes, or any form, violence is cool or acceptable.
I get the sentiment, and I would like to have a president that doesn't require the threat of punching him in the face in order to counter his rhetoric of other people punching other people in the face. But one is inciting violence, and the other one is saying to stand up to a bully, you have to be strong. So it's not the same context, which is why I said to you, it depends on the context. But would it be better to have a presidential race that doesn't involve having to stand up to a guy who threatens violence every 5 minutes? Yeah, it would be better.
Of course. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have higher standards is all.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't. This idea, Michelle Obama's idea of when they go low, we go high, it's a nice idea, and us individually should do that. But when it comes to standing on a stage with Donald Trump, somebody's going to have to stand up to him as the bully he is. He'll fall apart if you stand up